this next presentation. Can I get a show of hands if you've seen Sound of Freedom? Show of hands if you've seen it. Well, the next speaker that we're bringing up, on top of being the executive producer of Sound of Freedom, he's the person that connected the initial investor with a Homeland Security agent that's featured in the movie. Before that, he managed over $40 billion in assets, managed over a team of 1,000 employees, and decided to put, after retiring in finance in 2017, put his life on the line to run undercover missions to rescue victims of sex trafficking.
Thank you, Richard, for inviting me here. And I actually knew Richard back when he first started and I first started. I had about 2-3 million under management when we started, and he was just starting his as well. And now we have billions. And we talked about a few of the people who have seen the movie. If you have seen the movie, my character is Pablo, the multi-billion-dollar fund manager who's asked not only to help rescue to fund the rescue itself, but to play a part, to physically be there. And it wasn't funding it that changed my life. What changed my life was seeing trafficked children for the first time. And, I had been involved in charity work for a long time. In fact, I believe, and we'll talk about this in a second, but I believe that is the number one reason for my success is that charity work. So, I'm gonna talk about building wealth for about 5 minutes. I could talk for a few hours, but I'll talk 5 minutes on building wealth, about 5 minutes on charity work, and then I'm going to go into personal transformation and creating a global change. Because here we are, at this family office conference. Our goal is to figure out how to be more successful in our businesses, and that's okay. It's okay. We've had a few different helicopters. We've had a few different planes. We've had a basketball court in our basement. There's nothing wrong with having and creating a life of luxury. But if you do so and you lose the sight of making a difference in the lives of others, then it will be so unfulfilling in every way. So just to touch on the wealth side for a second. So how many guys here have invested in real estate? We have a lot of real estate investors, about half. So here's my question. Of all the real estate in the world, what is the most valuable piece of real estate that you could develop right now? There's some places here in New York. There's some places in Hong Kong. What's the most valuable piece of real estate you will ever own? It's the 6 inches between your ears. Am I right? Okay. So in passing on wealth to that next generation, my number one thing that I'm teaching my kids is not, hey, this is how you invest in this property, whatever else. It's how do you develop this? And how do you have the right relationship with money and wealth and success? What does that relationship look like? Well, just touching on one thing, if one of the problems that people have, especially if you're just getting started and building your company and whatnot, if you're a charitable person, if you're a good person and you don't want to hurt others, and if there's anything inside of you that believes that we live in a zero-sum world, what does that mean? In order for you to make $1 million, somehow somebody has to lose $1 million. If you want to make $1 billion, that billion has to come out of other people's pockets. If you believe that in any form, then subconsciously you're going to sabotage your own success if you're a good person. What I need you to understand is that we truly live in a world of abundance, that you can create value. You can create value that is more valuable to the world. You want to make $1 million? Create $1 million worth of value in the lives of others. You want to make $1 billion? Create $1 billion worth of value in the lives of others. And you'll have all of that coming back. That's part of this universal law of exchange. The problem is that many schools of thought on economics, many books on economics, we open up the book and the definition of economics is the division of scarce resources, which is a fallacy. There's enough resources on this world that every single one of us could have all the food we could ever eat, all the houses we could ever live in, all the clothes we could ever wear, right? But many people believe that we live in this world of scarcity. So changing your mindset, you go back a 1,000 years and you ask an astrologer, you say, what's the definition of astrology? And they would say, well, what I do as an astrologer is I study how the sun and the planets and the stars revolve around the earth. And the very definition of what they did precluded them from understanding the truth that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. Today, many times, the very definition of economics, the division of scarce resources, precludes us from understanding the truth that indeed we live in a world of abundance. Every single company that I built was built upon that philosophy of a true win-win-win. All the way around. With Bridge, we found, we have over 50,000 apartment units when I retired. And one of our philosophies was put ourselves in the shoes of our tenants, not just our investors, but the guys who were there. Now, these were B minus properties. And a lot of them, we were in the Smile States. We were down, by where a lot of the immigrants are coming in. And a lot of our tenants were Latino. And there was all these tennis courts with 4-foot weeds. They didn't play tennis, right? They played soccer. So we took down those. We put little soccer fields in. We brought in English as a second language. We brought in the bookmobile. We took this big, huge piece of real estate that's inside of it that all of the managers were there with these opulent offices. We don't know. You're going to stay in these smaller offices. We're going to turn the rest of it into a place where we're putting computers in there, and we're bringing in tutors so that these kids can have a place to go after school, right? This is putting yourself, this is creating wealth while doing good. Creating wealth now you can do that. Now, we sit back and, we think, I don't want to be a scumlord. You don't be a scumlord, because every single dollar that you earn in working and creating value without integrity will canker your soul. But if you think on a creative plane, realize that we don't have to live in a dog-eat-dog world. We don't have to destroy other people. We don't have to pillage all of our tenants. No, now I'm not putting gold towel rods in a B-class neighborhood, right? But we're making sure that the roofs are good, and we're making sure the pool is clean, and we're making sure that they have Taco Tuesday, whatever it is that's going to create value in their lives. And in doing so, the bottom line was we became the #1 investment fund in the country right after the crash of 2008. And we continued to grow because we built it with integrity. And we created something where our investors, yes, we're preserving their money by making sure that we're in some good real estate assets. We're making sure they're making money, but we're making sure that they're making an impact as well. So as you create wealth, I'm not going to go into deeper on that, but as you create wealth, have that mindset of abundance, that mindset of creation. I love to tell this little story. There's 10 men on an island, 10 families. And every day, the 10 men go out and they go fishing. And they get just enough fish to feed their families. And then 2 guys come up with this brilliant idea of this net. So they sew this net together with their wives, and they go out, and sure enough, they're able to fish and catch enough fish for the entire island. This creativity that they had literally created wealth out of thin air, right? Because 2 guys are able to create enough food for the whole island. Now, our current administration would tax those 2 men 80% of their fish, and and they would just a well-functioning economy though would say, hey, one of you guys get better at building huts, one would get better at building boats, one would get better at educating the children, and lifestyle as a whole would increase for the entire island. This is how creativity works. This is how we need to be in business as we're creating wealth. It's thinking out of that box and saying, how can I create a net? How can I create value that is more valuable for my tenants, for my employees, for everybody than what I'm getting back for myself? You do that, you deserve to be managing billions and billions of dollars because your mindset is right and your heart is right. You know what? I'm just going to do a little side trivia just for fun. I'm going to break the ice. Okay, so just for fun, who here has heard of Henry Cavill? I'm going to tell this story. Henry Cavill, he's an actor. He plays Superman, right? Remember Superman versus Batman, right? So he's a Superman actor. Well, Henry, he was at my wife's work like every day. This is before we met, right? And she started to date, not huge, just like a few dates, right? And then she met me. I stole Superman's girlfriend. What? So anyway, just a side note. I just thought I'd throw that in for fun. I'm with the codes here. I would love to spend one-on-one time. If you're building a fund, I can help you do that. And when we started, we were raising. It took me a whole year to raise $2 million. By the time I retired, we were raising $10 million a day, right? So how do you do that? I'll spend an hour with you and teach you that. Click on the thing that says Child Liberation Foundation. I'm going to go into depth of that. Have your firm donate at least $10,000 to that. I will spend an hour with you or more in helping you get to that point with your company. Or if you have family, I would love to talk to you about, next generation wealth and how to create that, or creating a difference together. The other one, so you got the Child Liberation Foundation. The other one is Liberating Humanity. And I'm going to talk in depth about personal transformation. If you want to spend longer time, if you want to come down to South America and spend 2 days, 4 days, 5 days in a fully immersive, personal, transformational experience, then go on there and learn more about that, because I'm all about working with the tip of the umbrella, right? You guys are the biggest influencers in the world. You've got wealthy families that you represent. You are wealthy families. You're huge influencers. You're athletes. You're somebody that people look up to. And if I can help you transform how you think about the world and yourself and money and working through generational trauma, whatever it is, if I can help create value in your world, then that tip of the umbrella is going to, boom, go out and flood and create massive ripples in the rest of the world as well. Let me talk just really quickly about charity work. So when I was 22, 23 years old, just getting started, and I had a mentor. And he taught me a lot of things. He was one that taught me that, the 6 inches between my ears. He said, Paul, your car should be a university on wheels. For the rest of your life, I don't even want you to know if your car radio works. You should be listening to audio programs on business and finance and leadership and relationships, all of these different things. And so that changed my life. The other thing that he said that transformed everything, he said, Paul, some of the wealthiest families in the world live by a principle of not just giving a little bit, but creating transformational change. The average person gives about 2% of their money per year. Think about your last year. What did you earn? What did you give away to make an impact? Okay? The average person gives away about 2%. Now, you would think that the people in this room, you would think that millionaires as a whole would be a bigger number. Here's what's sad. The average millionaire gives less percentage-wise per year than the person earning under $100,000 a year. That makes me sick, guys. My mentor told me this. He said, Paul, if you make a decision today, this is back when I'm earning $2,000 a month. He said, you make a decision today that you're going to give until it hurts. Not just 2%, not 5%, not even 10%. He says, make a decision that you're going to be 15 to 20% of your money to making a difference in the lives of others, to charity. He said, you make that decision. You can call it karma. You can call it the universe. You can call it God. I call it God. He said that there's a higher power very interested in us doing good, and your success will be infinitely bigger than it would be without that. Now, how does somebody become a partner, let alone a founder, of a multi-billion dollar investment fund? Well, you're not a University of Utah dropout, right? That's what I am. The statistical probability of me being where I am is 0. The only way that I can understand it is that I made that decision in my early 20s, that I was going to be generous to that degree. And it wasn't just money. He said, Paul, and I remember complaining. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm earning $2,000 a month. You're telling me I have to donate 20% of that. I have to live on $1,600. I'm going to have to work more hours. He says, in addition to that, you need to be donating 20% of your time. I'm like, crap. What about work-life balance? I've got to give my time for charity and business and everything else. But I promise you, test it. Test it. The windows of the heavens will open up and you will not have room enough to receive it in your life if you make the decision to make a difference. Find something. I'm going to be talking about our charity, but I'm not here to promote that. I want you to dig deep inside. Sit down with your family and say, what is important to us? You know, Uncle John died of cancer. Let's get behind that. You know, Aunt Mary, she had this. Whatever it is, get behind something that you can be passionate about. And don't just write a check. Decide to get involved in a way where you can create a global movement in whatever it is. This group can do that. I've spoke to a high school group recently. You know, these kids, they can do that too, but you guys are already there. You have resources at your disposal. Each one of you do. Even if it's not your own checkbook, it's your network to create a global movement. So find something you're passionate about and decide you're not just going to write a check. You're going to get involved. You're going to decide together as a family that you're going to make a powerful impact in the world. Okay? So find something that you're passionate about. It was funny. I remember this conversation with my mentor, and I said, wait a minute. I wanted to be successful, and you can write this down. I wanted to be successful so I could be charitable. I had no idea that I should be charitable so that I could be successful. Okay? Wherever you are on this journey, especially if you're just getting your businesses started and whatnot, if you choose to be charitable, it will create success. It will. I have seen it over and over and over. In fact, I remember once there was this big TV radio influencer, and his name is Glenn Beck, and he wanted to launch his anti-child trafficking campaign from Bangkok, Thailand. And he had about 50 million people that were following him on his social media and his radio and TV, everything else. And I knew that if his audience could see what I had seen, that would make a powerful impact. But it was going to cost $100,000 to get Glenn and his whole team to Thailand for this event. And at the time, the charity that I was working with, it wasn't Child Liberation, it was a former one, they had a bunch of grandmas that were donating $1 a month. That was kind of sacred money. We didn't want to touch that. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to fund that. I'm going to make that happen. So myself and my business partner, Dawn, we funded the $100,000 plus to make that happen. We flew to Thailand, filmed a bunch of the kids in the orphanages, actually did an op there that's a whole other, so you can go on to Liberating Humanity and learn all about those ops. But on the way home, as we flew back to the U.S. and as the wheels touched down on our plane, and I started to get signal on my phone, I had 2 voicemail messages pop up. One of them was from a family member of the owner of this of this hotel and the biggest hotel chain in the world. And he said, hey, Paul, I've been looking at your numbers. I want to give you another $10 million into your senior housing investment fund. And the other was from the owner of one of the largest gas station chains in the entire country, with even a bigger number. My income from those 2 voicemail messages that came while I was flying, my income from those 2 voicemail messages multiples exceeded what I had just invested. Okay? This happens every single time, guys. Choose to get passionate about something and make a difference, and the rewards will come on the other side. So now I want to touch just briefly on the movie itself and on making a global impact. We have just a few minutes left. So we have a handful of people that have seen Sound of Freedom movie. I suggest you take time to watch it. It's now online. You can go to Amazon. I promise it will change your life. It will change your perspective on what's going on in the world, and it'll help you get passionate about something, right? Yeah, it's a dark subject, but we did a beautiful job in making sure that we didn't delve down those dark passages, but you will feel it. And I'll tell you the quick background of the story, and then I'll end there. So about 10 years ago, I'm not Paul Hutchinson, I'm Paul effin Hutchinson, right? I'm running a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. I have this huge house. I've got 10 bathrooms in my house, right? We have this I mean, is gargantuan. And we had all these cool parties there and all this stuff. That was the energy that I was in. But I was donating a lot to charity. Boom, boom, boom. And I get a phone call from our Attorney General. He said, Paul, he said, I know you've done a lot with child-related charities. He said, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't even know that it's happening. He said, I'm talking, and I'm trying to figure out, drugs or whatever. He says it's human trafficking, and it's now the second most profitable, surpassing the illegal arms trade, soon going to surpass the drug trade. And he said, specifically, I want to talk to you about child trafficking. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't want to hear that. I mean, what? Children being sold? He goes, yeah. He said there's a Homeland Security agent who's in Cartagena, Colombia. He's identified over 20 children that are being sold for sex to wealthy Americans. And I'm like, that is just sick. That is sick, sick, sick. He said, the guy needs like 50 grand to pull these kids out of hell because the government wouldn't give him the money because he couldn't prove that there's any Americans involved. And, for me at the time, I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years. And it was a beautiful organization helping children with life-threatening illnesses. And at the time, I'm thinking, okay, $10,000 with Make-A-Wish, I just send a little girl to Disneyland for a week with her family, which is important. She's struggling with cancer. But $50,000 here, I could pull 20 children out of hell and get them back to their families. There wasn't a comparison. And so I helped make that happen, introduced him some people, and then 2 weeks later, this agent called me. He said, Paul, I'm in Cartagena. There's not just 20 children there. Here, there's more than 50. And there's more than 100 children in the surrounding areas. This is kind of the storyline of the movie. This is the backstory of what really happened. He said there's more than 100 children in the surrounding areas that he said we believe that we can rescue all of them on the same day at the same time. But I need your help in a big way. And I said, my ego self is like, well, how much do you need? How much do you need? I'll write you a check. He said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said the head trafficker down here has a piece of property that he wants to develop into a child brothel sex resort. He needs a few $1 million to build it out. He believes he can make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to wealthy clients. And I'm like, okay, how do I help? He goes, he said, I have to have somebody that can pretend like they're willing to fund that. Now, he knew more about my background than most people. I have a set of skills that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. But he said, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to negotiate this deal. He said, if you come down here and just tell them, listen, I will fund your project under one condition. You call all of the other traffickers that you're connected with and get them to bring all of their inventory together at the same time. Because I'm going to have a party in another week and I'm going to bring a bunch of my buddies down. He said, if you come down and tell him that, we believe he'll make those calls and he'll bring those children and we can rescue them all. So 2 days now, realize this, I was at a conference like this. I was at a second and third generation billionaire event in Atlanta, Georgia. When I got the call, I'm like, well, I don't have time to go home real quick. What do I wear? He's like, come down as a wealthy playboy, right? I'm looking down. I have $2,000 cufflinks on at the time, right? $50,000 watch. I've got a suit on that costs more than my first car. And I'm like, I think I got the outfit, right? 2 days later, I was face to face with the most evil people on the planet. Negotiating this deal, halfway through, one of them leans forward and he goes, Pablo, I have a gift for you. I said, really? What's your gift? He hands me his phone, and there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone. He said, this is Princess. She's still a virgin. He started talking about horrific things I could do to this little girl. I realized, wow, if we could get these kids out before they were ever abused in the first place, that would be a miracle. And something he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, Fuego, I said, you have more virgin? Oh, yeah, I got 3 or 4 more. I said, you're bringing those to the party too, right? He goes, oh, no, they're too expensive. Too expensive. I'm already paying this guy $25,000. I'm paying him $500 per child for a minimum of 50 children just for 2 hours in the afternoon. I said, he goes, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. You want to F those other virgins? It's going to cost you maybe $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. At this point, I was legitimately pissed. My ego self stepped right up front and center. I put my hands on my chest and I'm like, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He's like, oh, no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those virgins at my party. They damn well better be virgins when they get there. They're not for you. They're for me, my guys. You understand? Oh, yeah, Jefe, I understand. A stupid smile. In the movie, if you saw that, my character wasn't convinced to go by the Homeland Security agent. And it was only after my driver was given this picture of this child and gave it to me, and then I looked at that, and that convinced me to go. In real life, I was already there. And that moment was the first major transition for me. Fast forward, a week plus later, we had met with, our team had met with the Colombian federal agents and the U.S. Embassy down there. And we set everything up. These guys in Cartagena ended up bringing 54 children. We had 3 separate cities going at the same time. And they put the children in this separate part, this little house area. Separated them so that we could negotiate everything. And I'm sitting there at this table, and one of the traffickers gets up. We live here? Hello? One of the traffickers gets up, and he says, Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you. And he went in the house where the children are, and immediately we could hear a few of the children crying. So scared. 10 minutes later, he comes out, and he has 4 virgins. 3 little girls and 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. They gave him cocaine because he was so scared it was going to hurt. And what kind of effed up monster thinks that that's attractive? Every cell in my body wanted to just hug these kids and say, you're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents. No, I couldn't say that. This little girl, the same one he showed me in the picture, they brought her in front of me. Now, I'm sitting down on a chair. I'm your size. And she was standing up, was just barely above my eye level. And all I could see was fear. And I made a commitment at that moment to myself, to God, to that child, that I was going to dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. So we did 3 separate cities in one day. 127 victims were rescued and back with their families. And the most beautiful moment, thank you, most beautiful moment of my life was after the agents came, arrested everybody. The Child Protective Services people came in with the children. And they started singing and laughing with these kids. And that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. Compared to the crying I heard half an hour before. And I turned to the agent and I said, I've spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I actually had a Lamborghini on my vision board that I had been waiting for a couple years. I had to hit a few more goals and I was there. It was a white Aventador. Door. It was gorgeous, convertible. I told him, I'm not going to buy that car. I want to write you the check. I want to make a difference. What can I do? And he said, Paul, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to wear a $4,000 suit and a $50,000 watch, negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal. I've never found an ultra-successful business owner who's had the training that you've had. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. That was 10 years ago. I have now led or played a key part in over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries. And through our foundation, Child Liberation Foundation, and other foundations that I have helped to fund and start, over 6,000 victims are back with their families. Guys, I tell you all of this because my hope today is that you go home and say, okay, how can I have a powerful impact in the lives of others? I had a poster when I was a kid, and it had a bunch of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and it had a quote that said, he who has the most toys wins, right? I now have one that says, he who has a powerful, positive impact in the most lives wins. That's what it's all about, guys. Figure out how to create a global movement. I realized at that moment, when I made that promise to that little girl in my heart, I realized at that moment that we couldn't take millions of people and have them see what I had seen. But we could help millions of people feel what I had felt. And that's why we decided to make the movie. It became the #1 independent film in the world. We only spent 14. I didn't introduce the investor. I was the investor. I was the primary investor in Sound of Freedom. We brought in some other families as well to help with that. We only spent $14 million on the movie, but we did $270 million in box office sales alone. Now, the money isn't what's important. What's important is every single one of those dollars represents a human being who we were able to help feel what I had felt. Guys, go home today or after this conference, spend time with your family. Sit down and decide what it is you're passionate about, how you're going to give back, your why. What is the purpose of the wealth that you've either inherited or that you're creating? What is the real purpose of all of that? Is it just that you can have Ferraris for your second and third generation great-grandkids? Or is it so that you can leave a meaningful impact? A meaningful impact. Something that your great-great-grandkids can say, my great-grandpa made a massive impact in the world. Not just made a bunch of money, but he made a massive impact, or she. That's what my hope is today. Reach inside, ask yourself, how can I make a difference? If you want to participate with us, go to liberatechildren.org, and you can learn about that there. If you have the capacity to donate, we would love that. We're building safe houses right now for the kids. We're building out retreats, healing retreats for adults as well. If you want to come and spend some time on a personal transformational experience, then go to Liberating Humanity and learn about that as well. Thank you. Thank you for coming and spending time with me today.